Hello, everyone, and welcome to Show Me the Money Malvertising Threats. This is part of our Show Me the Money series that goes into how fraudsters actually make money from these different types of frauds. I'm Rosemary Cipriano. I am the senior content writer here at Human, and I am joined by an awesome group of panelists, Patrick, Lindsay, and Kyle. So I would love each of you to introduce yourselves, name, title, and this is a human favorite here, but please tell us your favorite robot. Lindsay, you go first.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Superczynski-Matthies. I'm on the product team here at Human. I have two answers. One is this makeup robot that is out in the world that lets you choose the exact color of lipstick you want, and it prints it to a lipstick right in front of you. Very, very, very cool. I don't own one, but I would like to one day. And then my second answer is my iPhone. I love internet culture. I'm very into Supernatural again right now, and it keeps me connected to the internet and the wide world of fandom that's there.
Wow, I need that robot, that makeup robot. I'm gonna look into that after this. Patrick, you're next.
Hey, so I'm Patrick. I am from Microsoft. I'm a senior product specialist engineer here. Favorite robot? I thought it was supposed to be like a famous one, so I guess I'll do it that way, if that makes sense. Sorry.
That's totally
But
fine. Do whatever you
yeah,
want.
yeah, yeah. I was going bouncing back for a couple, but I'll say just Bumblebee. I was gonna do Bender, but I'll keep it a little VG here. But yeah, I'll go with Bumblebee. I'm a gearhead. I enjoy automotive stuff, and the color yellow, so keep it that simple. Yep.
Both are awesome answers. I mean, we used to have a conference room named Bender back in the day, so
Yeah.
also love that one. Kyle, you're up.
Hey, I'm Kyle Green, VP of Marketplace Strategy at Kargo. And I had the same thing as Patrick. I actually went with Bender, but I think I need to change it and go with C3PO or with R2D2. But I definitely didn't think about my phone, or I went right to TV. So
Most people do. It is totally fine. My favorite robot is Karen from SpongeBob. Little under the radar, but she's pretty hilarious, and I hope to be half as funny as her one day. So great answers all around. Thank you guys so much. So we're here to talk about a pretty pervasive threat to the programmatic advertising ecosystem, malvertising. Let's start at a super high level here. Malvertising is when an ad on a publisher's site is embedded with malware or malicious behavior, and when a user clicks on the ad, it can download malware onto the user device without them ever knowing about it. This is inherently tied to ad quality. So, Kyle, I'm going to start with you. From the publisher's perspective, why is ensuring inventory integrity so important?
yeah, so I think from a high level, like publishers work really hard on creating content, like servicing that content in search, on social, on other different platforms, and also creating a good user experience for the users. And so when you have malware, like pop-ups or downloads or anything like that, it's really going against what they're trying to do, and it really creates a bad experience for the user. It even creates sloppy ads, and when you're viewing your page, you really want to have that best impression forward when someone's reading it. And so the user is going to remember that, and if you have that experience, it could create a negative effect on the user.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like user experience nowadays on the internet is like number one. So making sure that that is safe and you're not bringing anybody to any weird redirects or whatnot is so important.
I mean, everyone loves the Amazon. You want a free prize, so.
Oh my God. Remember those? I haven't seen them in a while. Maybe they finally got wise that those didn't actually work.
I don't know. I feel like they still exist, but you guys would know better than us.
They're still out there. They're still out there. They're just targeting people who are maybe a little more susceptible these days to this.
Yeah, I bet they're not targeting people like us who work in cybersecurity. So, Patrick, what is your experience with malvertising threats outside of the Amazon ads you won a free prize?
Yeah, I've seen those. I've dealt with a lot in my years with my company. So yeah, I've been with my company for like 9 years. Probably that's counting like all the acquisitions. So I probably became a malware SME in my field like second year. So I would say like 7 years experience here. It's funny how you mentioned everything because like everything started as redirects back then. So I dealt with all those. Hey, why is this mobile redirect happening to me? Why is this image showing? So I dealt with all those, but it's like throughout the years, like you see it improve and like I don't mean like improve. It's like threats keep on changing and things get better, and like we try to get better. We just try to find ways to block stuff. So definitely went through a lot. It's just interesting seeing like the growth of everything and how we try to prevent like all this bad stuff happening on the internet. What we called it back then, protect bad. Well, protect us from bad stuff or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot, and we see that like across any kind of threat on the internet. Hackers are human after all, and they see technology coming at them and getting wiser, so they also get wiser. So, as Lindsay, malvertising is different from unwanted ads. What is that difference?
Yeah, definitely. To Patrick's point, I used to refer to them all collectively as bad ads. It was the simplest way to refer to both together. But unwanted ads you may hear referred to as a few things. So something like ad quality, ad policies, content policy, things like that, just some other words that folks might hear. But essentially, they are the subjective badness on the internet. So typically, these are going to be ads that folks don't want. Folks meaning platforms and publishers, typically, that have content that is objectionable in some way, whether that is in violation of actual policies or is just against like general human acceptable standards on the internet, right? So let's give some examples. So everything from alcohol, gambling, and tobacco to THC and adult content to technical things like heavy ads or autoplay audio or ads lacking a border. So when you hear unwanted ads, think that kind of everything that could be subjective that is not malvertising. So let's jump into what is malvertising. So malvertising is the objective bad. It is, there are definitions out there. Myself and many folks in the industry helped write them recently, the, tag malvertising taxonomy, for example. But simply, it is end user objective harm because of an ad. And we've done, some work as an industry to decide just how objective we can be there because there's always nuance, of course, and things change and evolve. But I think all the things we've touched on prior to this, like malicious code in an ad, is pretty obvious, right? But there's more beyond that. But objective versus subjective harm can be one helpful way to frame it.
That is a really awesome way of looking at it. Thank you so much for that. So unwanted ads are just, as that they're heavy ads, they don't have a border, or there's something that is quote unquote not exactly brand safe. And then we have malvertising, which is a whole different ballgame, it sounds. So we're going to now dive into how exactly malvertising works. So Lindsay, I'm going to kick this to you again.
Yeah.
How does it work? What is going on there?
Yeah, we've started digging into it because it really starts with the history of malvertising, I think, and that can be a helpful way to think of it. I like to say it is incredibly simple, but it can be incredibly complex. So back in the day, any bad actor could literally write a single line into a JavaScript ad tag. That single line would redirect anyone who came across that ad on the World Wide Web to a website of that bad actor's choosing without the user clicking on the ad, right? So there's your definition of a redirect, or an auto redirect, as we used to call them. That's the old days that we know still happens today, but that was kind of where things sort of started. Today, we know that malvertisers actually can use malvertising as a threat vector. For example, they can access systems, think like hospitals or government officials or even tech companies like we all work at. It's a threat vector that is sometimes a little bit easier to go through than others. So I just like to give those as like endpoints of kind of like how complicated things can be. So that level of sophistication means something, right? It means that the malvertising looks different, whether that's the code, whether that's the behavior, whether that's the actual ads themselves. One example of this is bad actors have wised up and they try to avoid sandboxes that are scanning for bad actions, right? A cool way they do this, and again, I say cool with some respect there, is by hyper-targeting folks, right? They are trying to find real users to send the badness to. Maybe that's someone in Baltimore, Maryland, who is on an iPhone that is at 50% battery, and also that iPhone is moving in space. Some bad actors have access to all of that telemetry, and they can literally hyper-target a bad ad to that device, person, whatever you want to call it.
Wow.
it's a performance campaign, right? So they're trying to make money at the end of the day. So whatever the bad action is, I think it's helpful to think about it in the context of advertising, because malware is everywhere in the world, but this is malware through advertising. Yeah. Any questions or other examples that folks have related to that of your favorite weird malvertising targeting? That one was made up, to be clear.
Kyle, Patrick?
I mean, not specifically, but I have heard of people being able to target like, oh, I know this person's like sitting on the couch based off of like the angle they're holding their phone versus like an ad farm. So I know they get pretty sophisticated, and it makes it a lot harder to detect things. So it helps when you have like, you're not like blocking things. It's more of like following behaviors versus like trying to do something that way.
Wow. The angle of the phone is rocking my world a little bit right now. I did not know that. Patrick, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everyone's saying. Like, it's the behavior. Like, I've heard like a lot of people targeting the elder because like they look at their phone, they don't know where to click. Even me personally, like my dad, he's a little older. He doesn't know how to use like technology like we do, like the younger folks. Like if he sees something, he clicks on it, and like he doesn't know what it is, and then all of a sudden, boom, attacked. So yeah, it's horrible.
It sounds like also that like traditional security approaches that rely like on block lists can't really stop this, right, Lindsay? Like you need like a more like behavioral approach.
Yeah, it's layers of protection for sure, but the most sophisticated one is definitely that behavioral analysis because it is looking at yes, those targeting parameters and all those wonderful signals that we have and ways we have to detect it. But by behavioral, we also mean or specifically mean, what are they trying to get the user to do? What are the bad actors trying to get the user to do? So that behavior then ends up being the auto redirect or the crypto scam at the end of a clickbait ad. So those things are happening on page in real time, right? They're trying to avoid scanners. They're trying to avoid any type of detection, manual review, human review, right? Like ads can go through eyes on ad trafficking, for example. The bad guys know that we're out here. They know that, we're trying to detect this. And so they're trying to get around us. And the way that human does it is we're looking as close to when they think they've gotten to a real user as possible, right? On page and behavioral. So that's our approach.
Gotcha. So I want to talk to Kyle and Patrick for a second about how this has touched you guys and what you do. So Patrick first, how does malvertising impact platforms?
I would really say it's like it's like a user experience, bad user experience, and like I think overall it's more of like reputation for a platform. Like you definitely don't want to work with a platform that has bad reputation with malware. Like even if you hear the word malware, like that's already a red flag for anything. So I think that's probably the biggest thing because I've like me personally working with like my company back then, like we don't trust we have to trust who we work with basically, right? You want to feel safe and like security issues and all that stuff. So that's definitely one thing I think that it affects both. Like reputation is important, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like in advertising, there's nothing more important than reputation and trust. So yeah. So then Kyle, what problems does malvertising pose to your publishers?
Yeah, I mean, it's some similar things to Patrick. So like brand reputation. So say you're on like a popular site that you go to all the time and all of a sudden you start getting pop-ups or redirects or something that is causing a bad user experience. Like you remember that. And like next time you see them in search or next time you see them somewhere, you might think twice of clicking that site versus another one. And it really like creates a lack of user trust and experience in which like people do remember. So even outside of that, like if you go to a site and let's say the first ad you see or the second is going to be an ad that takes you off the content, you're then going to lose revenue. You're going to have lower session depth and lower time on page, which ends up hurting you. So not only does it hurt your reputation, but it hurts how much money you're able to make. And something that's also, I think, really interesting that as we're going through all this data and privacy stuff, like if someone's downloading malware to your phone, like that's a user data breach. And that's something that is important to publishers because they can get in trouble for that. And so that's something it's really important to us. And I think really important to publishers because they don't want to have a lawsuit coming to them for that. And then one other like slow kind of side effect is like if you have interstitials of things popping up or a bad user experience, like Google might not surface you, or search engines might stop showing you because of that bad experience. And like you can have like a traffic decline over time if you keep having them pop up.
Right. Wow. A lot of layers there of what could happen to a publisher. So, as a follow-up question for you, on face, publishers might not bat an eye at malvertising because at the end of the day, they're still getting paid for the ad impression. However, we all know that that's kind of short-sighted. So, how does malvertising hurt the publisher's bottom line? You just started touching on it a little.
Yeah, so I mean, you could see it. You could see decline in traffic. You'll see less impressions and less revenue from there. And it's an interesting battle that revenue teams always actually have with product and SEO teams because those two things don't necessarily go hand in hand. And so the bad user experience from that a revenue person might be like, oh, we're making money, who cares? The product person is going to be like, we can't have this. And so there's a really easy way to kind of work together between the two teams to kind of like combat that. And it's by using malware detection and blocking. It's allowing you to kind of get the best of both worlds. You get paid for the ads and you have a good user experience.
Amazing. Thank you. So this series is called Show Me the Money because we want to get to the root of how fraudsters actually make money from these schemes. Touched on it for a moment, but it can kind of get lost in the conversation, like why they're doing this. And Lindsay, you touched on it very briefly that all of this is to make money. No hacker is on the internet just doing this just to pass time in the day. They're doing it to make money. So Lindsay, how exactly do fraudsters make money from advertising?
I love that comment, first of all, because I have some hacker friends who do hack for fun. Only for good, but for fun. only for good, to be clear.
We'll take that. We'll take that.
So malvertising, I like to frame this in the fact that it impacts real people every single day. And I'm going to get into exactly how. There are just a myriad of ways. So we'll cover off on a few of like, where is this money coming from that these bad guys get, right? Let's start simple and within the ad tech ecosystem. There could be an unscrupulous ad platform or an advertiser who manipulates, let's say, the ad tech ecosystem to improve the performance of their ad campaign. They might do this by just a little bit to try to fly under the radar, right? But why does this make them money? So for an advertiser, it drives more users to their site, right? Auto redirects, clickbait, something like that, right? Malvertising that drives users to an advertiser site. Even though it's not through maybe legitimate means, so to say, it's more eyeballs on their product, potentially more sales. Okay. Platforms, if you have a high performing campaign, you have a good reputation as a good ad platform or a high performing ad platform, you're going to get more and more premium business. So that's like one kind of ad tech focus side, right? Mm-hmm. Let's get into kind of the more nefarious side. So there's stealing from people. Or from users, as we sometimes call them. I like to stick with people, but for, some folks maybe listening, users. So there's a few levels. You can phish for people's data. So any of your online or real life identity can be stolen and sold to a variety of people who want to buy it. Or even more nefarious, in my opinion, there's things like full identity theft, PII theft, credit card credential theft, other type of credential like password theft that can happen through malvertising. And then those data points or pieces of intel or information can be sold to bad actors through channels like the dark web, or certainly the malvertising bad actors could be abusing what they steal themselves. Just a couple other little bullet points of other ways to make money. Crypto scams, you make money off the scam itself. Advertisements are a beautiful way to distribute that, right? Malware as a service is a concept. There are folks out there just coding the malware, selling it to other folks. And then there is even the possibility, I think I mentioned briefly, of someone like state actors, bad actors, nation states who get everything from money to power through malvertising. It's a threat vector for lots of types of badness and lots of types of money grabs, if you will.
Wow. So it's kind of that was exceptional, but it sounds like malvertising can kind of be like the beginning of a lot of different types of other frauds down the line. Is that fair to say?
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, you could have just the malvertising. It could just steal some money from an ad campaign, or it could be the start of this massive plot to steal large swaths of money, to set up fake companies. To the world is our oyster here. So not trying to give any bad guys any ideas, but these are things we've seen. These are not new or novel. These are really happening out there.
Yeah, we're not just making stuff up here. Well, I mean, we did actually see this with the Vast Flux botnets. The fraudsters started with malvertising to create their bot army by putting malware on unsuspecting users' devices. So, Lindsay, how can publishers and platforms protect themselves from malvertising attacks?
Right. So as you point out, we didn't touch on this one prior, but malvertising can make you money if you set up a botnet through that as a distribution system. So let's give some tangible steps that folks can take. So one, know your partners, right? You have to know who you are working with personally. I recommend an onboarding vetting process of some kind that includes questions about ad quality and malvertising. I really strongly recommend that. Two, know your partners. So this is a kind of web that we exist in the ad tech ecosystem. It's all very interconnected. My opinion is that you should at least know a bare minimum about your partners who the folks you work with directly are representing, at whatever scale and capacity you have. Three, engage with a vendor. Of course, we'd love it to be human, but the vendors are really good at what we do, which is preventing those bad actions. And in particular for us, those actions on page and those behavioral analysis based stops that we can do. And then four, I always say engage in threat sharing in whatever way you can, right? So like foster a culture of it, actually join a group, do it from partner to partner with trusted partners. It's something that the ad tech industry as a whole is working towards, right? We're working towards this threat sharing piece. So let's dig in.
Awesome. And I know we touched on this a little bit earlier about behavioral approach versus just traditional block lists. So I guess, anybody can answer here, so jump right in. But why do you feel from your perspective that a behavioral approach to fighting malvertising is better than a traditional block list approach?
I'll kind of level set, and then if folks want to add anything, please feel free. So problems with blocklists include things like they're heavy technically. They take a lot of time to maintain. They get out of date really easily, and they don't address the root malicious behaviors, as we mentioned. So those are the why nots. The real-time on-page behavioral analysis, it basically is just the gold standard there of actually stopping as close to that attempted action as possible and having the best chance of catching it, right? There's so much changing about malvertising all the time. This is the most proactive you can be, is how I like to say it.
Yeah, I would say like the old way is basically playing like whack-a-mole. It's like, oh, you see something and you just keep like trying to bash it on the head. And they can just change one little setting, and then you have to do it again and do it again and do it again. So being able to look at behaviors really makes it easier and more scalable.
Patrick, I saw you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was going to say what Colin just said. It's like a game of cat and mouse. Just the old ways, basically. So if you have it like behavioral, like advertisers are constantly evolving all the time. So it's good to, get them right away, or the best we can, as I like to say it.
Yeah. I want to make sure our audience walks away with something that they could tangibly do to protect themselves from attacks. As we discussed here, there's a lot of risk, from brand reputation to actual revenue loss. And a big thing here I want to know is trust. We keep coming back to the trust and reputation part of this, and from many sides of the ecosystem. You can't buy trust, that's earned. And this industry hinges on trust on all sides. So what can a platform or a publisher do today to better protect themselves and earn that trust? And anyone can answer, jump on in.
Yeah, I feel like we have an order here, which I love. I think just start if you haven't already, right? If you have not started addressing this problem, acknowledge that it exists in the industry as a step one and start. You can start small. We say things like an onboarding checklist, right? Up to engage with a vendor, right? There are so many steps you can take to start trying to solve this problem. And then definitely, I would say that threat sharing piece and engaging with partners in a safe and trusted way is something that's just going to be necessary to try to solve this as best we can.
Great. Kyle, you're up.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, trust is very important, like especially when it goes directly to your bottom line. So knowing who you're working with and being able to trust them is really important. And as a publisher, like you get comments, you see things on the site where like if something bad happens, like you should have someone monitoring that stuff to see like what's happening. And so if you do have some like service or some sort of threat monitoring in there and you're still getting complaints, it might be time to like maybe go and look at reviewing and seeing who else is out there to make sure that you're really getting everything that's happening, and that so that your site is fully, completely like protected.
Patrick, anything to add?
I could add some things. I think like it's education overall, just knowing the best practices and look out for ways to combat malware threats, just like the simple ones. What else is there? See something, say something. Like airports, just like subways in New York City. See something, say something. Keep each other safe. And yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, I mean hey, it works for a reason, that phrase. I love that as a takeaway for everybody. So we have a few questions in the messages. So let's maybe get to one or two here with our time left. How has the threat landscape changed? We did talk a little bit about this. Is there anything else we want to add?
I would say, think about how much creatives have even changed, right? How many new formats of creatives we have in ad tech overall, right? Digital out of home, super hot, in-game ads. Like it's just a fascinating ecosystem where there's always going to be a new place to put an advertisement. And that means there's always potentially new ways that malware can evolve. And like, that's the big level. There's something as simple as like a creative image can just be swapped out manually on the back end and it evades, your manual checks and certain sandboxes. So, I think change is it's been a part of Malvertising forever so that they don't get caught. But I love the creative examples. And I can get into like very specifics. Like I've seen ads that have cartoon filters put on them to evade image detection, that type of thing. So folks, if there's a technology out there or an emerging technology, it'll probably be used in Malvertising at some point in the future.
So you're saying ChatGPT is going to be turned into malware?
I think we're there. I think
so too.
Yeah.
The people that run this stuff they're really smart, and they are always one step ahead of everyone. Basically, when they're going at building these things out, they find out what you're doing, what you're looking for, and how to kind of evade it. And they've been very good at making money for a very long time of it. So it's going to continue to evolve, and it evolves very quickly.
Yeah, I'm sure we could do an entire session on just one of these types. Patrick, you were going to say something.
Yeah. No, you could go ahead. Yeah, agree. Yep.
I love it. We go Lindsay, Kyle, and Patrick goes, yeah, hell yeah. I love it. All right, one more question. What kind of revenue lift or bounce rate have you seen from a publisher perspective? So I guess, Kyle, this would be a great question for you.
Yeah, so it's been a while since I've looked into it, but I remember in the past, like it goes in fluctuations. Like some days you get hit real bad, and 20% of your articles could just be knocked out with malware. And it might not happen that often, but it does happen a lot. And so like, as you see that happen over time, like if you're not protecting yourself, like it can be a serious risk to revenue, especially if you're losing that many page views.
Right. Well, we're really up at time. Is there anything else anyone wants to add or any takeaways want to make sure you get out there before we end this thing?
Thanks to the panel. This was super, super fascinating. And these type of conversations will help solve this problem. So thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Everyone watching, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you all around.